Uh, Basically, the credit is a constant flux,
Hmm.
so we can choose how the grain is going to be distributed in that moment, which is weekly. So,
Yeah,
in our
but does
first
it have to be
distribution,
on schedule, like a weekly, or could we? Because now we choose the first one to be the
we
last
can
of
decide for
July.
sure.
Mm.
Uh huh.
Because
Yeah,
ideally,
at least for.
if we quantify, if we make, currently we do a month at a time
Uh-huh.
for the praise quantification, then ideally we would also like to make one single grain distribution each
Yeah.
the last of each month up until present time, and then change it
Hmm.
to do bi-weekly, so that the grain distributions sync with the the praise quantification schedule.
Yeah, so I would say that the first distribution takes into account the 52 weeks from July 25 last year until now, and that's going to take all of those weeks into account. After that, we can decide to make the distribution monthly and then bi-weekly, as you say. But that's basically a decision that we have to make according to the past grain distribution that we made. For example, if we make this first one taking 52 weeks, the next week we need to change the configuration to just take importance to the last week, for example. Then if we decide to make it bi-weekly, we say, okay, take into account these 2 weeks that have passed. Or if it's monthly, we say just 4 weeks and on and on.
Yeah, and ideally, I think we would not like to make it 52 weeks at all. The first one, so the first, ideally, we would
Hmm.
like to make the first grain distribution end the last July last
Yeah.
year. So that
But
would be then for all contributions up to that date.
yeah, yeah. At least I noticed that in the configuration, if we remove all of those parameters, we just take into account the grade that is being generated, and we have information from even before July.
Yep.
So I think the 50 weeks or whatever number that is have to be there, at least for the first one.
Yeah. So it will look from July 31st. It will look like 52 weeks back from that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And I guess that is a one of the reward system parameters that we need to set for source grid.
Sorry, I heard you a little bit broken. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I said that is one of the parameters that we need to agree on as a group. If it should be like 52 weeks, or if it should be only like a half a year, because it decides how far back we would like to track contributions, or value contributions.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody opposes or.
Have I understood it right that when the as time goes on, it kind of just stops counting everything that happened before, right? So it kind of uses the last year of contributions for the whole grain and cred calculations, right?
Yeah, we can put that into the configuration if we have how do you say a strategy. We define the strategy. We can say
Yeah.
we have an immediate distribution, and it will take all of the credit that has happened so far. Otherwise, we can choose a balanced distribution that is taking like it's not exponential. It's like a slow decrease on the value of the credit if the time has passed or is being a long time. For example, if your contribution was from more than a year ago, the ones that you made recently has more value than those. So those are in the configuration. We can decide. At least I would say that For the 52 weeks, we have a balanced distribution. It's just like every single contribution from July 30 or whatever 2021 has is going to have value for that first grain. So basically, we can define that strategy. We can also define. I'm missing something. I will take a look, but I think that the main thing is the distribution strategy and the amount, because we can say, okay, if we have 10K for this distribution, we can put half of it in an immediate or in another strategy, in a balance or immediate. We can decide that as well. But
Okay, thanks.
yeah, with that, I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, that makes sorry, that makes sense. Yeah.
How are you, Nagin?
Well, I'm better. I'm still quarantined in my room and coughing, and I'm definitely not putting on the video. But yeah, it's getting better. Thanks, Christopher.
Yeah, good to hear. So, hi everyone again. Should we? I posted a bunch of open questions that we as the reward board need to sort out. Should we try to just start at the top of the list with the open questions and then work our way down and see how far we get, hopefully to the end? How does that sound?
Great.
Silence means agreement. So we'll start with the how much tokens should we allocate per period is a good question, and this is what I know or I've seen that we manage the reward board DAO manages approximately 55,000 TC. And as far as I have understood, we have promised that the funds should last for 6 months. And the decision, we were given the funds in January. So the first question is that have we promised that the funds we now manage should cover both all past rewards and last until the end of June? Is that your interpretation as well?
I don't think. Is this thing working?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
I don't think we specifically said like how long the funds were going to last, and I think a big oversight when we were asking for funds was we didn't realize how much retroactive quantification we're going to have to do. That being said, I would be curious to know, like, based on our current quants, like, how much that would actually mean that each contributor gets. The second point is that I would love to see distributions be relative at some point to how much we have in our common pool. But maybe that's something a bit further down.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pass it.
In my opinion, it should be something like depending on on the week's work from the DAO. Like at least that was we're doing before. Like okay, this week how much impact hours should we distribute? Like overall the common how many hours it had, and then based on that, make in this case like okay how much TC also like the community is going bigger and bigger, so I think we shouldn't distribute the same one period than 10 periods after when there is 20 more people or even more.
Yeah, I agree with Septi, but I would say that having a minimum would be ideal as well. Like, there won't be like a value below, I don't know, let's say 1K or whatever DC. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I like a first idea that started to go around to use 1% of the common pool for every period. Maybe it's too much for every period, but it could be for every month. I like because it gives an incentive for everyone to have a better value for the TC. I think it's nice to have it tight with how much we have in the treasury.
That's exactly the point. It's like we can do lots of work, but if we're not generating value or revenue somehow, then it's like, we kind of get into a slippery slope. So like having a direct incentive between like increasing the funds available, thus increasing the amount of rewards that we can disperse.
Yeah.
But maybe that's tough to do right now because for a lot of this stuff we're retroactively quantifying. We didn't have a common pool.
I just want to say, like in the other side, like if we do a percentage in the negative way, like we can, like it's like the percentage is compounding, so we run out of money faster. So, like if like I see like the alignment of doing, if it's a percentage, it incentivizes the community to make this common pool bigger, but in the other way, like if we don't accomplish that, we run out of funds faster.
But we would run out of funds faster by just having a fixed amount, whereas like we could have a relative amount and actually like as we decrease the common pool, the distributions would become less as well, and so it becomes relative instead of using a fixed amount.
Yeah, and then the success of the commons would be the success of all the contributors. Like they would be aligned. And I think to your point, Mitch, for this praise we're quantifying now, we didn't have the common pool, but we kind of had the common pool. It was fixed to the hatch amount. And before the hatch, we also had the same incentive that the more we raised for the hatch, the more people would receive for impact hours. And then having this fixed amount of the laser tag to the reward systems, I think it's connected with that too, because it's also tied to the value of the token.
Yeah, I just also want to say, like, I was not saying like a fixed amount, but also the reward board gets an estimate of how much the community advanced uh, on our mission, and then in regarding what we advanced, we said like, okay, this is the amount that goes for this period, and then everyone gets what the quantifier side.
I still remember it being quite clear that we said that the funds would last for 6 months. I'm trying to find that, and if that is the case, that we need to consider how bound we are to that promise. So this is how it's phrased. Ideally, we allocate a portion of these purchase TC tokens to fund the reward system for 6 months until the reward board is settled and can begin making their own funding requests. So that is how we phrased it, or Mitch. Is that something we need to live by, or is it something we can just be inspired by?
I also feel like more than 6 months already passed, right?
Yeah,
Since
and that is what is that is unclear, because of course this the post was made in October and the funds were released in January. So the 6 month period, what does it? What 6 months do we mean?
on the other side, who are we also going to do with paid contributors? Like I feel also it doesn't feel fair, like double pay people and then others half.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I was just asking like how are we going to deal with paid people, at least people who's paid from the TC.
Silence.
I think we talked about having it the first distributions or just the beginning of the praise system being not that much money that it kind of substitutes the paid work, at least at the beginning. If that's so, I understood that as we're not gonna care about that for the beginning, but that's kind of what I remember. I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, we talked about the praise, the rewards from praise and source credit as being the sort of the icing on the cake, and your base income coming from other sources such as grants and working group funds, etc.
I think we are in a transition phase that eventually the reward system could take care of most of the work happening. So we would just have these two things like grants for tea projects and the reward system paying for all of the work that happens in the ground. But I think we're far from that happening. So maybe just thinking about this moment as a transition could be good.
And me speaking as a Swede, where where unions are super common and the workers' rights are a big issue, I would not want to live in a world where my pay would be reliant on others praising my contributions each month, and if for some reason my work is not visible enough, etc., then I wouldn't get paid. That would be at least a deal breaker in my world for working in a community. So my personal opinion is that we should not go too far in that direction, but let praise and rewards be something separate to the fixed pay sort of.
You don't think the I did a thing could kind of cover that?
Sorry.
Do you think the I did a thing could kind of cover that?
Yeah, that might be a thing, because then you can that you could view I did a thing as sort of a time reporting where you thoroughly report everything you do, and people value that. Then of course that is a reliable source.
I do have a suggestion about I did a thing. Maybe what we could do is like make a culture of telling what you did every week in a Discord channel. So that's why it's not like you have to do it every day. It's like you just summarize what you did in the week and then you're weighed against that. I know there might be issues with doing that, but at least that simplifies it for the quantifiers, in my opinion.
I got disconnected. My Discord died. Where are we?
I think we should get back to the main topic. Sorry, Vi. It's super interesting to talk about future features as well, but we need to actually make a decision on how much tokens to allocate per period for the first and second period and the coming ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess summarizing everything you have said, that we have some options. Either we set a fixed amount per period based on what we have, and then we know how long the funds last, or we do a percentage based allocation based on something, either the common pool or I guess it would be that. And then we don't know for certain how long the funds will last.
Can we do a fixed amount until we get to the hatch? Or until we catch up at some point?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Like,
yeah, and it also still there's the question of how bound are we by the promise that the funds would last for 6 months, or are we free to interpret that to say that 6 months meant 6 months from when we started quantify, not 6 months into the future.
Mm-hmm. And also, the small detail there is that like we said that the rewards would be denominated in XDAI and then converted to TEC when they're distributed.
Mm.
So we would kind of like say like a dollar amount that we want to distribute and then like just do like a conversion to TEC.
I remember Chris mentioned that we should keep at least for the source credit interface just to say grain, and for each distribution we just basically announce how much a grain is equivalent in TC or whatever currency we choose.
Yeah, and now I think we were going with the even simpler option is that we assign an amount of DAI for the source credit for the source credit grain distribution during a period, and as simple as this, if you have 1% of the total grain during one period, you will get 1% of the total assigned XDAI converted into TEC then for that period. Because that allows us not having to give the grain any value, but we will just look at the percentages of the total instead.
I wonder if we are looking at like if we have an approximate number or figure that would be reasonable for contributions, like how much would contributors expect from the reward system, or if that hasn't not been discussed yet.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because some people do more than others. I feel like we almost
Oh,
just I feel like we're shooting in the dark and then we need to like simulate a lot of this stuff.
yeah. I'm asking that more than anything because I think that would help to identify the dollar figure to be distributed. Because like maybe I'm leaning towards something like a fixed amount with some policies regarding activity. Like if the activity is low and this amount is fixed, you're going to have contributors are going to receive um, an increased amount of rewards, and I don't know if that's something acceptable. Um, on the same ways, otherwise, like in periods of high activity, the rewards per person are going to be significantly less. And I don't know if like we want to take into account that or just distribute in whatever.
I mean, who would even decide those metrics on high activity, low activity? Do we have like I don't know.
Can
Yeah.
we begin to try to sort out this initial question about how long does do our current funds need to last? Is it 6 months from the first quant, or is it 6 months from January when we receive the funds?
It would be cool to make them last as long as possible, so I'm inclined to say 6 months from January.
Yeah, I agree there. I don't think it would be a good look to just arrive and say, "Hey, we want to have double the money now," that we just got a couple of months ago.
And that is my sense as well, that it would be not the most popular request to say, no, we just spent the budget and now we're back to present time and we need as much again. The downside of it means that it is what it is. It's like 51 weeks and we have 55,000, so it's sort of quite clear that it leans towards being like 1,000 TC per week, sort of. Unless we have some other idea about the distribution, distributing less in the beginning and more towards the end or whatever.
And just so like we look at that in, because we're gonna be like looking at the numbers in DAI, that's like over 200K, 250K in DAI based on current prices.
Thinking of the sentiment. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Levi.
No, I was just thinking that from the sentiment of the community, I think this is the best period to be cheap if we need, because people were not necessarily expecting high rewards. There was a lot of new people joining. It was right after the hatch. Hatchers are feeling somehow rewarded because the price of the token is already more than what they put in. So I think if we need to stretch anything, this would be the best moment. And then if the value of the rewards just increase with time, I think that's a good look.
So that's 200K. So 1,000 TC per week is somewhere to the tune of like 4,000 DAI, a little over.
No, 2,000. The TC is to run
yeah.
to.
Sorry, you're right. Math, man, you guys. So yeah,
$2,000 a week.
For how many people would you say? In average, 50 something?
Yeah, I would say like 50. And if we're considering
Let's see what the top receiver, how much they received. So in the first quant round, Livy, you received 837 out of a total of 9,021. 9,021. So you received almost 1% of the almost 10% of the total price total rewards amount from this is from praise only, so it might look different when we integrate the source credit, of course, but 10%. So if things would look the same when we have integrated source credit, most likely it won't, but that would mean in your case 10% out of $4,000 for 2 weeks in July, because we began mid-month. So that at least would mean $400, which is not a huge amount of money, but still not
if we
nothing.
Consider we're taking away the cut that we give to the
yeah, of course,
quantifiers and the reward board.
Yeah.
So tentatively, that's like minus 12%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this does make me think of Zeptimus' point now, because this is almost the same amount as the stewards are being paid. And how to do in this transition, because I do feel like I wouldn't feel like it's fair for me to receive that much and then know that there's a lot of people that are not being compensated who also contributed a lot are receiving way less. I don't know if there's some type of measure we can have in this transition phase while we're still paying contributors from grants.
Yeah. I mean, considering this is the retroactive work that you were doing too, Libby, you know? So this is the stuff that you were doing, you know, after the reward system ended and we didn't really have like a budget to pay anybody anything. So, I mean, consider that too as well.
Yeah, but you know what I mean for like moving forward now that we do
Yeah.
what happens when we do get to the present moment.
Yeah, it would be cool to have like a factor on there. Like if you're getting regular awards, maybe you only get like 0.7 of what you normally get, and then the rest is distributed against the people who don't have a factor on them.
Do you think we could have something that allows us to distribute rewards, but just the like not the wrap token? Like the wrap token would still be tied to the score, and then if there was a way that no, I don't know, probably a bad idea.
What about for now though? Like for these retroactive distributions, is it okay like having this fixed amount because we're assuming that nobody was getting rewarded for anything because we didn't have a common pool?
Yeah, and we have the laser tag fund. Maybe we do have a fixed amount as long as laser tag lasts, and then after we switch to a percentage.
Laser tag? You mean the reward board or?
Yeah, I mean like the funds that came from the initial buy.
Yeah, so that's the 55K in the reward board. And then we can, that gives us at least like, then we can start distributing, and then we've got like at least another month or two to like make a robust solution for post commons upgrade.
Mm-hmm. I think that sounds reasonable. Who else agrees on this? So I assume anyone that doesn't speak out disagrees. I like that. It's an interesting
Can you
definition.
restate the claim succinctly? Like what we're supposed to be agreeing to?
A fixed amount of rewards or XDAI being distributed per week up until the point where up until when we have run out of these initial funds, and that would be then 2,000 XDAI per week, as long as the funds last, and that will. Or sorry, did I understand you correctly now, Mitch?
I'm saying is like, I think we should do this fixed amount up until at least the hatch. Like this retroactive rewards.
I think we could do the fixed amount until we run out of this 55K.
Okay, all right. So then we have, that gives us 3 months to find a better solution when we make our next funding request.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying you would have the fixed amount until June?
Yes.
That would be the
June.
approximate effect, yeah, of $2,000 fixed amount per week from July. And we have approximately 200K, or slightly over.
Aye, sounds good to me.
So this is the proposal. So everyone that is silent opposes it.
I agree.
I have one concern. What if someone, like we're saying, like we give a percentage, for example, like for quantifiers, but then what if someone just praise people for quantifying, or the reward board, like, yeah, great job on the distributions, praise, and then it's like accounting two times.
I mean, that kind of seems like often a tangent, but I mean, when we do these tweak sessions or we're going through and we're noticing stuff like that, we can always address it.
That is something that came up yesterday during the tweak session. Someone had actually praised someone for praising, and I think we all present during the tweak session agreed that that kind of praise most likely would be what
Dismissed.
is called dismissed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Or that it would be up to the interpretation of the people, of the person quantifying.
Of course.
Yeah. Let's keep working on this.
The 12th until the 31st of July is 19 days, and 19 days out of 31, 19 out of 31 is 61% of a month. Now, what is? I had the ambition to calculate what would be the allocation for the first month if we do it per week. Maybe allocating per week makes it difficult because we have to per day would be easier.
Why is per day easier?
Yeah, because months don't have 4 weeks. So either we disregard that and like, yeah, July, it was 2 weeks, more or less. And
Okay, so it would be like, I mean, that seems fine. And then it's days per period.
yeah, so for August, August has 30 days, so it would be 30 times whatever it is.
Oh my god, these roosters. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, that sounds great because then July is only 2 weeks. And then August, like, we can just go by the August period and then it becomes a bit more even.
Do you think we need to be exact and calculate the days, or could we assume that 1 month is 2 weeks, more or less?
That 1 month is 2 weeks.
No, 4 weeks. Sorry.
We should just go by the actual period dates, no?
Yeah, then the amount per day is 2,000 divided by 7, which is 285. So for the period of July, that is 19 days from the 12th until the 31st. 19 times 285.
Yeah, that sounds way better per day for sure.
Which is on that, and then 25. September is 31 days, is it? Not.
Yeah, I think we should be able to do this async, but I think there's a lot more stuff to chew through.
Okay, like
how much to allocate source credit and praise and
but are we in agreement that it is $285 per day until funds run out?
Yeah, I think that's
Or rather, is anyone opposing this?
Can you say the day that funds would run out?
55. I don't remember the exact amount.
by June we would expect to make another funding request. So I mean,
yeah.
Is it really relevant at that point? Like we
No,
would get.
it also
that
depends
funding.
on how the TC token
True that.
develops. So it's not possible to say.
Thanks.
Well, let's just assume the price stays the same, and I mean, I just want to confirm that it actually goes till June.
What if we fix the amount on TEC based on the value of today?
Yep. So 353 days from July 12th until end of June. 353 times 285 is $100,000. We have done something wrong.
Nice. So $100,000 is all we need, and we have more than 50,000.
Yeah, and that's correct. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because when I did the math, I got like that we'd have it for 420 days, good old 420, and that sounds fine. And it seems like we could increase it, or we can handle some TC volatility.
I think it'll be good to leave some buffer for that volatility. And if we have some left over, it might be fine, because if we decide to, once the reward system is a bit better, maybe we decide to make it a bit more lucrative for non-regular contributors. We'll see. But anyway.
Okay. So let's move this thing from open questions then to something else. Decisions. Okay. And that means that we are good to allocate this amount for the first round, which feels nice. be able to move on. But we still, of course, need to get the source cred fully online and the red dashboard running, etc. And we won't do any distribution before verifying everything an extra or 2 extra times. So we have a little bit more than 10 minutes left. Should we try to tackle one of the next question? I think this one is fairly easy.
As done as possible.
Yeah. How much to allocate to source credit and praise respectively? We have been talking 50-50. I don't know. Does anyone have any other opinions?
I think 50-50 is great, and we might find out something else when we actually like run the whole system.
Yeah, I agree. For starters, 50-50 is probably the best shot.
Have we done any analysis on source cred at all? Like, do we have the data that people would get for source cred, and have we looked at it to say that it's legitimate, that it looks good? Because I think we've focused a lot on analyzing that our praise is good, but source cred is kind of like an unknown thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that we should lower a little bit, at least for source code. Not sure how much, but it should be a little bit less.
Okay.
And I think it's important to highlight again, because since we intentionally removed all emoji reactions to for source cred data, which sort of reduces source cred to be, and I think this is important to keep in mind, that when removing the emoji reactions from the source cred data, the source cred is to a great extent just an activity tracker. It will just track your, the number of pull requests, the number of issues, the number of comments, etc. It doesn't value the contents, because the valuation of the contents is represented by the emoji reactions. So removing that reduces it to an activity tracker, just so we know and keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that no one knew that they were going to be rewarded for data work in forum and work in GitHub, but everyone expects to be rewarded for praise. So I feel like meeting those expectations might be worth it. And I would say more like 75-25 or 80-20.
I mean, the big problem though is that like we were missing all the people working in the background who weren't necessarily getting praised all the time. So this is one of the big complaints of the old reward system, is that we weren't capturing this data.
Can anyone say that source code captures that data?
Like, we're trying to run this whole system, and test it.
Yeah, but we know for sure that the signal is quite low quality, because it won't discriminate between a pull request that took a week to make and a pull request just representing a small fix. Because we like I said, we remove the emoji reaction, so we don't have a signal for quality. We only have a signal for quantity currently.
Do we still have the dashboard that Santi created? I tried to log in the other day, but it wasn't working anymore. Maybe we could bring that back up. I don't know how easy that is. That gives some analysis of how SourceCred was capturing stuff in the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should scope our conversation to July, August, September, November, December, and where I'm pretty sure that the people who are working in the background, we made extra efforts. Like, for instance, the people who are actually active on GitHub, Sam, Paulo, and the Common Swarm team, we made extra effort to give them praise. In fact, to collect their hours, they were being dished praise. I also think that, at least in the parameters group, when we're writing forum posts, like, I feel like we tried to do a good job at dishing praise to the people who are writing forum posts. So I feel like, because at the time there was no expectation of source code taking effect, that a lot of people in the background were getting praised as well. for stuff that, in the future, 50/50 makes sense. But for July to December, I think we did our best to make sure that people were being rewarded via praise.
All right, Griff. Well, then maybe let's try 75/25.
Or at least if we look at the source code data and it's like, oh yeah, look at all this work these people were doing and they weren't getting praised, then I think then we can say, oh yes, actually, source code is valuable. But if no one's even looked at it, then it's kind of like giving half the rewards in the dark. Just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, more on that side too. Because I think there's a lot of times where the praise will give quality to the work that was captured by source cred. Like you said, Christopher, that instead of the emojis, we have the praise.
And that this is an important insight that I think we gained when talking to Seth from SourceCred, that he is sort of, he didn't specifically say that, but he told us between the lines, sort of, when removing the emoji reactions, we also remove the qualitative aspect of SourceCred tracking and making it more of a activity tracker only. So I stand behind giving less towards source cred. And anyone opposes 75/25 to begin with for this, the first, the initial rounds at least?
I think we can also revise that if we see that it doesn't work. So for the starter, why not?
I think the process we have agreed on is that we in the best of worlds, we should look over these parameters for each rewards round. Of course, we can do it asynchronously, but if someone feels that the parameters are not correct, then those can be corrected for the next round. So if it doesn't look good for August, we can adjust it for September. Okay, but good for now then, at least. Unless anyone says otherwise. How much to allocate to reward board quantifiers and contributors? We have previously discussed in that order 2%, 10%, and 88%.
If we're looking at what we were just discussing, oh, I lost my calculator. I think that comes up to like 2,000. So that's $200 for quantifiers. And then if we assume that it's like an average of 8 to 10 quantifiers per week, it could be less than that, but it'll be somewhere around like 20 to 25 die per week. Which I'm assuming, like, if we did if a month's worth of praise takes about an hour and a half. I think it's pretty generous.
So, sorry, could you repeat that? For instance, in the case of August, we would have 8550 in total allocated die. 10% of that is 855 divided by 21
I think it was about
quantifiers.
21 quantifiers, yeah.
Yeah, 855 21 is 40.
40.
40.
So 40 die for about an hour and a half. Hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It seems generous.
Too generous?
I'd be curious to see what like 8% and then give the other like 7 to 8% and then give the other amount to the contributors.
Mm. I also felt that of course I know the system well, but I did not spend an hour quantifying August, and I did it quite thoroughly, I think. I also agree that 10% might be a bit much. Do I have any other opinions?
While we're looking at it, like, does the reward board, like, since we've cut a lot of the reward board's work and like kind of delegated to the quantifiers, like for tweaking and stuff, like, why should the reward board get 2%?
You're saying the reward board work is included in the quantifier work?
Well, because before we were like looking at it and we were saying we had to like review all the things and like check and do all the tweaks was like the reward board, but then we decided no, the quantifiers should do it. So the reward board, I think, has a lot less like ongoing work to do.
Yeah.
There's
And
work that we haven't even started yet, like the distributions and even this, like needing to set these parameters. I think this should happen in a like regular basis.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think there will be, and definitely if we choose to also integrate Bright ID, so that we would have to take the distribution list, we will have to filter it through Bright ID, register the payout with the DAO, make the vote, approve the payout, and also look at the parameters between rounds. And so this all comes down to on 2%. It comes down to that magic number of 19 DAI an hour that we all are familiar with. So,
Right.
and do we assume is that a? Do we think that a reward board member will do 1 hour worth of work for each pace period? I don't think that is unlikely.
It's unlikely that they'll do that much, or likely that they'll do more.
I think they most likely some of them us will do more work. I think
Mm-hmm.
not a huge amount of work.
I would wonder then, because the reward board seems a little bit limited. Like I would like to see it go to the working group treasury instead, because the reward board is just like this sort of arbitrary Aragon DAO that we have set up.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about that too. That there are people in the board that are not necessarily that have like voting power in the DAO, but that are not necessarily interacting with all these things we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
but
maybe
shouldn't
Oh,
they
go ahead.
get the foot after? Like, yeah, I think we said if you're not active during like 2 or 3 rounds, then you should step out of the being part of the
Right.
board.
But I'm thinking about people who are like contributing in the working group, like I don't think Matty G or Nebs or stuff like they're on there necessarily. So it's like they're probably going to be doing work for this stuff, and like they should be included in this too, and so like
Yeah, but they're not doing a reward board work. They're doing.
the solution could be just extend that metric we have for people not participating in 3 rounds of voting to people not joining the meetings for like a couple of meetings or something, and that would be solved.
Yeah. I think extending the budget to cover people outside of the actual reward board would make it very vague what kind of contributions should be covered by this this percentage. because the tasks for the reward board are quite clear cut and really necessary. I'm not saying that I advocate that the amount should be quite much larger, but I think 2% does definitely not seem way too much, because it's 1 hour worth of pay for one period.
And would 3% give us 27?
Yeah, most likely.
27 an hour seems. I mean, I think 3% could work. I wouldn't.
Should we get back to this in the next session?